all Diwali,
It's hard
enthusiasts.
to
That's what I'll
control.
say.
Yeah, it's hard to control kids basically and the youth.
Yes,
They
I
are
know
like,
there are few who bought crackers and all, and in India, sorry, in US, I can clearly understand because you don't have those many neighbors who are basically
yeah,
having crackers in their what you can say.
yeah,
Courtyard or something, but here even in society, like we have quite a few even really enthusiastic Punjabis and all, they really enjoy it, and they
yeah.
don't really
Punjabis and
really care
Gujaratis
about
usually
what
do
the
a
local
lot.
government creeps about. Sorry.
Yeah, Punjabis and Gujaratis usually
Exactly,
like
huh? They have lots and lots of these enjoyments, crackers, and lots of loud noise, even Shernais and all those things. You might hear something, believe me.
yeah,
I'm on 10th floor in my apartments. That's the top floor, but still, we hear many things.
yeah,
Please
yeah.
pardon me if there are any disturbances. I can repeat it for you. Please don't
Not
worry on
an
that.
issue. We can enjoy at least.
Okay, no problem. Definitely.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okie dokie. Rudra couldn't join us because I believe he had some guest coming in, and I believe everybody have said ki we can go ahead with Sunday class as well. So I'm open for that. It's okay. You'll have all the recordings and all those things, so you can listen to it. And if you have any questions, I can help you out on those as well, in particular. So please don't worry on losing anything. If you want to drop out, you can drop out, no issues. I can clearly understand because there is festivity, there are guests and everything. Even I was in US, I was leading the Hindu Sabha for St. Louis chapter. So we had lots of doctors, we had lots of insurance service provider. They used to really enjoy festivities in the mandir. Means we had a big ground floor in St. Louis Mandir. So we had all those exchanging of foods, exchanging of gifts, like Christmas. It's kind of combination of Christmas and Diwali. I still remember, and people really get good gifts, and it was really fun in those times. I still recall those things. In India, of course, we don't exchange gift. Yeah, we give gift, means we don't expect to return and everything. But yeah, that's the kind of, I think, discipline of Christians, and we have really taken that from them. And even during like birthdays and all, we exchange gift now, right?
Yeah. Actually, I remember like when I was in Nasik, we used to exchange sweets. A big thali. My
Yeah,
mom would serve
that's
all
a normal thing, right.
the
That's a
that.
normal thing. Even during Shravan we have various festival, like I don't know what do you call that thing, when we do Shivji and Parvati ji ka puja and exchange, or you shake the box and let the others know what's there inside and all those things. Gulabai Sarna or something. So it was really fun at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah, now I think those festivities have become very rare. Even those dance we used to have in Lakshmi, mm,
yeah. They do.
Ganpati and all those things, right?
All the
That's
fun
okay. It
after.
happens.
Yeah.
It's evolution, though. Yeah. Let's go ahead. So we were looking at high-level diagrams, right? As I
Yeah.
told you, not many organizations have as in discipline, but I think this is really good if you looking for a kind of supporting facts for traceability, even supporting fact to understand what actually is the solution at a glimpse. That's what the HLD is all about. I want to emphasize this because as an BA, it's important for you to know the solution and the path it's walking to, right? Because the solutions progress, solution evolution, and during agile is like you normally tend to be close with all the clients. Let's say State Farm, for that matter. If State Farm says ki I need iris scanner, I need body scanners, and then I need couple of others instruments too to support the attendance pitfalls and all those things, so we have to uh, get aligned with clients requirement, clients business alignment, and whatever at extra cost, because they'll pay, of course, for the additional development, additional instrument procuring and all those things. So that's there. But overall, if you look from a business analyst angle, it can evolve into some other system also. Means attendance management system can evolve into overall the organizational management system for HR. This happens, and it happened quite a few times in during my work experience. When I was in Belgrade, Yugoslavia, we had means I was a chief architect for Java entity based web photographer search engine. photographs couldn't really you couldn't search photographs, so you need to have something like metadata, right? Means a text file attached to a photograph depicting what that photographer is, and then this text file used to push into database. So whenever somebody search, it refers to the text file name, the text file, and it retrieves the name of the image where it relates to. It's called metadata clubbing. I'm explaining you because I want to share with you the experience of simple solution like image search, photograph search evolved into overall. Now it's a really big search engine for around 2 million photographers across the globe. It was started in Belgrade, and I was fortunate to be a chief architect at that time. They labeled these things like that, and we had really great group of developers. We had around, I think, 30 odd developers at that time, mostly Czechs means Russian guys, and they work tirelessly. Believe me, man, means I've just kind of tell them ki we are lagging, and they continuously work for 78 hours. And I remember those days and nights there. It was cold, around 8 to 9 degrees. They had those sparkling water, or what they call a bit of white wine, and we used to have pizza. So they had an oven in the ground floor of company building, and we used to cook pizza left and right. And believe me, these guys have cooked one of the best pizza I had till time. Means I have roamed around Italy and all, but I still like the Belgrade pizza, the way those guys make a pizza. We will discuss sometimes, but yeah. So overall, that web photographer engine have been evolved to a complete online system of selling photographs, archiving photographs, creating those metadata by themselves. Means now a system creates this metadata and those tags. Okay, have you understood metadata? Any question on this metadata thing?
Metadata is the major data where the entire data related the business is being stored, right? The master data.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. There are quite a few misconceptions on metadata. Metadata is kind of element attached to a format which is not recognized as in data by a digital format. Let's say in graphic file, right? Graphic file, a picture taken. What the picture taken? Picture taken is basically something called rasterization of pixels. Okay, I'm going into too technical. Sorry. It's a set of pixels, right? Red, green, blue, yellow, and combination of those things. We normally use true color. So it's like 16.7 million color levels within an image. And each dot has a value in numbers attached to it as in color level. This is how the image file get constructed, right? So whenever you search for some image file, there are basically some challenges, like computer don't know, right? Computer basically know only on and off. So whenever you're trying to search image file, there are certain things which you need to understand. As in digitally, to search an image file, you need some supporting facts, supporting documents which can depict a file name, the type of image, what does it basically represent to in terms of searching particular terms, and so on and so forth. So for these relevance, you create an extra text file which can be compressed to 98%, and this text file get attached to image file. That text file is called metadata for that image file. So metadata is an external file, text file 99%, attached to a data format which is not recognized digitally by computers. Let's say if you have an AutoCAD image, which only AutoCAD as in software can be, can read and write, right? So for such image, what I'll do, I'll create a text file telling my PC that this file name is relevant to a AutoCAD format, so that whenever my computer tries to open that file, it will refer to that metadata file. And this is kind of started with Windows 95. Now it's really a great practice, and it's good practice. So metadata is a file which is attached to a non-digital readable common formats. Okay, and this is a text file referred by all digital searches predominantly. Okay, so all these images, all these connections are basically kind of a reference document, what you see, right? Do you get what I mean by metadata, or any confusion?
No.
Have you understood metadata?
Yes.
This is just for understanding, because you might hear this word whenever you're on job. So it's good to know, good to understand, something like that. So we created a metadata thing, and it was really, even if you can have a look at that portal as of today, it's called webphotographers.com. now it's based in Europe. The organization has been moved from Belgrade to Europe, and they have really around quite great number of photographers with them. It's a really good pictures e-commerce platform now. So a typical photograph search engine has been evolved to a great web-based photo exchange system. So this is how it happens. So when you talked about when you start with a vision and mission, it can evolve into something else. It happens. So for that, you need to have certain reference thing which can act as a metadata to you as a personality, as an BA. So for that, what you do, you normally have these high level diagrams. Okay, and for what does high level diagram do? It depicts some boxes, some arrows, and data conversion methods which we have used to start with. It can be version 1.1, then I go to version 3.2.0, which actually tells me that old system has been evolved to something else, right? So you need to evolve yourself whenever you want to have a look at that system as an reviewer, as an advisory functional consultant, or basically trying to understand how that system evolved to that level. HLD is the right diagram, or HLD is the right reference material for such things. So these are basically kind of high level design, and mostly it's a conceptual rather than any technology reference, but it can have technology reference, and we're going to have a look at these HLDs wherever we have some technical references, and that's what we will basically spend some 15-20 minutes today to understand how HLD evolves, so that whenever you basically start on a system, designing, envisioning, eliciting the requirements, you tend to create a HLD. It's just pen, paper, and you draw some boxes with your paper, and try to reference it with the actual system distributions, or distribution of various entity, as and when you envision, as and when what you feel is the correct architecture of a system. This couldn't be very correct to the 100% to solution architect and design architect, but this is specifically for BA and non-technical people. The LLD, which is a kind of next evolution of HLD, is normally all the implementation details, technology details, platform details, and so on and so forth. So high level diagram is just a reference material for a non-technical person talking about the overall system, which is basically getting into existence, right? Because we as an BA, we author this document, we create this image of a system. Okay, so as we were discussing last time, we were basically trying to understand this attendance system which we thought about, right? So we had something like whatever this dark navy blue box tells us about whatever client shared with us as an wish list. So we have current attendance system manual, which has to be migrated to some 24/7 attendance system. So paper register, logbook, supervisor observing has to be migrated to a level where I can have an HR resources view digital artifacts, so that if I need to check Ravindra Pandey's attendance, I can go to just log into some web page and have a look at his attendance through this week, last week, and so on and so forth. So we need a kind of system where I can be able to view it, and if possible, then we can collect many offices and those things as well. So how the communication started? So as an Infosys have suggested them cloud-based automatic solution. Why cloud-based? It's 24/7. There's no downtime as such if you have a look at the localities, because whenever US cloud server they want to do maintenance, they do it in normally 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. range. Means that's a standard SLAs have been attached to all cloud service provider. So whenever we have maximum minimum users logged in, we the cloud service provider do update themselves. Okay, so the system has to be migrated to cloud, so can be accessed throughout the globe, can be accessed 24/7, and so on and so forth, right? And then I'm looking at a couple of other additions which we discussed, might be during the meeting, which came up after some time, and so on and so forth. So whenever I'm writing SRS, I'm also updating these things. So I might add a couple of more whenever I might have at a release 2 or release 3 of my SRS. So what I have on SRS 1, I have biometric scanner, iris scanner, leave management system, standard data distribution, alerts, approvals, kind of unified system with a central command. That's what we have discussed. So these are my basic functionalities which I must include to the application, and that's how we approved this thing. That's how we got it signed off. Does this image make any sense to you? Do you feel this represent at least up to a certain level? See, this is my vision, so I know it very well. This I might or might not publish, but this is my reference, and these don't have any technological interpretation, but still it has something like, iris scanner. It's something, it's something have standard data distribution, which are pretty technical terms, or alerts or unified system. These are technical terms. So I'm going technical, but I have not specified any platform or tools in detail. So iris scanner can be Philips, Sony, or whatever it may be, right? So these kind of things. So does this make any sense to you on HLDs? I'll ask one by one. Pawnee, could you understand what you mean by HLD, high level diagrams?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
You could relate to, right?
Yes.
Great, no problem. Revati, how about you? Do you think this represent your view of attendance management system enhancement, which we took as an example?
Yes, I'm trying to understand a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
But still, you could relate. Na? See, this is evolution. This is my personality, and I have assumed, understood as this means all these, 3-4 boxes relating to each other. This is what the HLD is. It might not be perfect. It might not be, as good as solution architect. We are not solution architect. We are a personality, and as far as my personality goes, I've seen the logical conceptual, architecture or logical conception distribution of a system like this, and that's why I have depicted it. Okay, this is important to me as a person, and this is my reflection. This might not get approved or might not need approval at all, frankly speaking, but this is my way of tracking how I perceive that attendance management system. So when I add something, when I subtract something, I might relate to myself in a much better sense, right? When I add a small box saying, I want to have certain, let's say, attachment with SAP. So what I'll do, I'll go to shapes. I'll just add a call out. Okay, let's say, let me give this thing. Okay, what I'll say, I'll add a SAP interface to this. I can use any symbols because this is my personal reference to the overall, solution. So what I'll do, SAP CTORS, SAP connector, because, as we discussed, these guys at State Farm, they use SAP internally. Okay, just imagine, means we don't have to be, perfect in scenario or, in any of, okay. So this is what I added, which I believe is a need of the hour, and, I need to take this, what can say, to a level where I can relate to afterwards. So this is a kind of addition I have done later. And this I can release at in version 2 or version 3 or whatever the next version in my current progression of SRS. As an BA, I can relate. Okay, yeah, we added some SAP connector on these and these date because last, they haven't discussed, and then they said they need SAP connectors. SAP, right? SAP is an ERP, which is normally used by many organizations for keeping track of their, logistical procurement, maintenance updates, and, so on and so forth. So it's called ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. Okay, these are standard softwares, and these are mostly ready-made third-party products each and every organization has, or they might have developed for themselves if they are IT. Okay, so SAP is a really great product. It's evolved over 60-70 years, and it's really a great ERP. Now they have cloud version, they have mobile version, and so on and so forth. So it's really great ERP. So enterprise resource planning software, which these guys are using as a State Farm, my client, and technology partner as in Infosys have included their connectors, have taken all those data synchronizations into consideration for the next version of attendance management system or attendance system enhancements, to be precise. Does that make sense to you? Yes. Rupanjali, could you relate to your thought process how this HLD is coming up or getting developed?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, great. No problem. I can understand there can be confusion, and please feel free to ask questions. This is not must for every BA, but if you know, then you can keep track of your updates, right? And picture says lots of word rather than reading a 30 or 40 page document. With one click, I can clearly assume what I have added and how the system is being progressed over the time. So I can have these, pictures saved somewhere on my laptop. And whenever somebody asks, Rupanjali, could you please check out when we started taking consideration or started considering adding SAP connectors to the attendance system enhancement for these state farm guys? So you can just open your laptop, click, and you'll get these images. You say, okay, in late mid-November we've started adding SAP connector, and now it's a part of internal system. They are critical because we have almost around 5 to 6 connector which are there. So you can rename them whenever you add connector. SAP connector for data push, SAP connector for data pull. Data pull means you get the data from SAP. Push means you send the data, like push pull. Push is like push away from me, pull is getting towards me. So those kind of scenario. So these are different connectors we design, and over the time it's get added in the systems and get programmed in those scenarios. That's functional specification, that's project manager responsibility. But as an BA, as I envision this system, so I need to consider the addition, I need to consider the overall evolution of system myself, so I can still be in charge, in control, and even in a approval and advisory capacity. That's what this thing is talking about, right? Santosh, could you relate the HLD with your thought process?
To be connected.
Come again, please.
I'm trying to connect it.
Okay, great. Yes. No problem. But have you have any contradictions with your thought process so that I can explain those things?
No, not yet.
Okay, great. Okay. Sheetal, are we good? Could you understand how we, progress in adding certain things?
Even I am trying to connect the points, and SAP connectors is the SAP's.
SAPs, that's right. SAP, correct. SAP. Okay, that's good. So it's a standard software used by many multinationals. So it's not that difficult. Means it's not that different. It's the same thing. Somebody called it SAP, somebody called it SAP. Okay, so don't worry on that part. Great. So what I would really, take it as a homework or take it as a leisure activity. Whenever you get a time, try to draw an HLD for, HR system enhancement, what we talked about. It's just boxes. What it will tell you, how do you perceive, how do you think of HR management system enhancement at State Farm? Okay, as an BA, just think it, what have you learned from this sample? What do you believe? And believe me, this is a part of your workshop. So if you do now your workshop, you have to do much lesser, believe me. So start thinking, draw these, different boxes. Okay. This is basically kind of understanding of a BA and its track of evolving system. That's the gist of it. Okay. So whenever you have time, today, tomorrow, might be, spend 10-15 minutes. It might not take more than that. Whatever you understood in terms of attention system enhancement, means the example which we are discussing from day one, right? Day one of our training. So try to put this, boxes. This is my, my way of basically, depicting the system and, actually depicting the overall, what you can say, overall evolution of the solution which I have suggested to State Farm in earlier stages and the additions thereafter. So that whenever I talk about, such scenarios, I would understand clearly how this system has been progressed and how this, system has been evolved to an extent where I can really, add value, or how have we discussed, how have you added, and how we progressed over the time. So this is really, important to take control of, whatever we did in terms of, system enhancement, system additions, and other things. So for that, it's my personal way of tracking things, my personal way of, understanding the additions, subtractions, and the overall changes in the systems. So changes in the solution which I have shared with them. Okay, now let's have a look at other HLDs, the way professionals have done this HLD and they have been released worldwide. Okay, let's have some of those, look at those LLD. Now we'll learn some technical terms as well. There are something called layers. Okay, could you see there's a pink, there's a blue, there's a green, and there's a purple. There are 4 different layers. These are called application layer, application tiers, or architecture layers as well. So when you talk about something like entire architecture, this tier depicts this number 4, the N depicts this number 4. So it's 4-layered architecture. Okay, presentation layer, UI component is basically user interface. So whatever you see on your web portal, the web page, those are UI components. Then we have business layer. So these UI components talk to a layer called business layer. So whenever I click submit on my form, whenever I click login on my form, what the page does internally, it goes to somebody in business layer and tell him, ki boss, this IP address have given me this login name, this login password, and could you please compare it with the database so that we can validate the login credential. This is how the login password works. Then the business layer goes to data access layer. It says, hey, data access layer, could you please go to database and check out if Ravindra Pandey has this login name and this password. Data access layer goes to data store, means where the actual database is, and come back to us. Okay, this pair does match. So please allow him to log into the system. So data access layer come back to service interfaces. It tells UI in turn, which basically let me log in. So it basically took me to another page called home page, or logged user page. This is how the sequence works. So the architecture can be depicted in such layers. This is again depends on personality of BA. There's no strict rule to create HLD. Okay, there are no strict format or template to create HLD. This is a kind of personal thought process of each and every business analyst to understand, to create these HLDs so that they can keep track of system evolution or the progress in system design, the addition, the subtraction in the system design. Any questions at this moment on this? Pardon me, you could hear some firecrackers in the background and all. So I believe there are no questions, right? I know it's a bit confusing whenever you're a non-IT guy, but still, just try to understand, and we'll basically do it by ourselves so that we can relate it too much, in a great depth. Okay, so I'll go ahead. Now these layers and tiers can be depicted vertically as well. So there are users, there are UI components, users talk to UI component. Then we have service, data access, data source, and services again. And then there is something called security. So security is applicable to UI components, UI, service interface, data access layers. Database have their own, security inbuilt in them. So unless and until you are logged in, they won't allow you to access any of the data elements. Okay. Then we have operation management. Then we have communication, means how this component will talk to each other, how this component will get updated whenever there's a new version, and so on and so forth. So there are a bit of logistic involved in this, and this is totally non-technical. There is no .NET, no Java, no any specific product also for that matters. So these are just logical components which we have clubbed together to understand the functionality of a blocks in my high level diagram. Could you relate it now? Could you relate it more now?
I think it will take time for me.
Okay, no problem. I'll try to share these images with you. So whenever you have time, try to create the attendance management system from your announcement. You could use any of these boxes, and let's try to understand, and we can validate it in our next class so that you could relate more, because this is important as in BA. That's what I learned through my experience, to keep track of those progression of design in a non-technical way. This is how we do it as in BA, right? Now, if you trying to work with a technology company, how does it happens? So when you go to something like technology company, an IT firm, this is how we normally depict. Now these boxes are pretty technical, but still you could relate. There is a mobile app. We know mobile app, right? There's something called REST API, Gateway API. API is Advanced Programming Interface. So mobile talks to a Windows system via certain programming interface, right? We could understand, right? A mobile can talk to my laptop via certain commands, via certain language, set of languages. So those are called Advanced Programming Interface, API. Okay. Now, REST API is basically the response part of it, and Gateway API is basically receiving part of it. We depict two differently because there has to be some marking whenever you talk to somebody, and whenever somebody talks to you, you should stop, right? You should stop and listen, something like that sort. So this is how the computer works. So there's a one way, stop, other way, stop, one way. So this is why we have these, club of web with web app, REST API with Gateway API, and so on and so forth. So REST API is basically response, time of building this action and respond kind of scenario. Okay. Now, what we talk about, a mobile app talks to a REST API, in turn talks to a Gateway API, and which channel my request to, if it's an account service, if it's an inventory service, and if it's a shopping service. Okay. How does it work? When I log in something like Amazon, right? When I logged in Amazon, first, through my mobile, I normally get REST API after my logged in. Then there's a Gateway API. So I ask Gateway API, hey Gateway API, do you have two items of red Punjabi dress for me? So it goes to account service. It say, okay, how's the last history? Okay, he or she have paid for all her pending payments. Now I can go to inventory. Okay, then Gateway API goes to inventory. Hey inventory, do you have red Punjabi dress for me? So inventory service, yes, you have. Then gateway come back and ask, okay, can I progress on shopping? So it says, okay, you can progress on shopping. Then it lets you decide, okay, there are 2 in stock available. You can purchase as this price, and it could come back to deliver to your house in so and so date. This is how it happens in Amazon. This is how it happens in all shopping website. Why I'm explaining you this? Because as an BA, you will go more and more technical day by day. This is what the experience is all about. So you don't really remember everything right now, but this is what the BA's progression is. This is what the domain knowledge is. So if you are a BA with online web store, web front, this is what it looks like to you whenever you think about a new online store design, new online store to be erected for a client. It can be State Farm, it can be anybody, right? And then a guy sitting on a desktop, he uses a web browser. Like, we use Chrome, we use Internet Explorer, we use Firefox, and there are dime a dozen, these web browser. So how does web browser work? Rather than REST API, web browser use something called web request. So I send a web request to Amazon web server saying, hey, Amazon web server, I am so and so, and I want to purchase 2 red Punjabi dress. So again, this guy does the same. This guy goes to first account service. Does this person have a login? He says, oh yeah, he have a login, and his credit it goes good with us. Oh, great. Then it comes back. So it goes to inventory. It says, inventory service, do we have 2 red Punjabi dress with you? He says, yes, we have. It's on a sale. So, okay, store funds goes to then shipping service. Could you please post this on sale red Punjabi dress to me? So it posts on your web page saying, okay, yes, you have 2 red Punjabi dress at $21 each, and it can be delivered to you within next 3 days. So you see how this happens. And internally, there's a database called account database, which has all your previous history information, how much paid, how much credit, in how many days, and so on forth. So on and so forth. And then we have inventory database. These are 3 independent database. Inventory is how many red Punjabi dress I have, how many blue I have, how many green I have. In shipping, I have what type of courier does this guy use last time? Okay, it use FedEx. Okay, it use US Postal Service. Okay, US Postal Service. So these guys can deliver in, let's say, Bloomington in 3 days. If these guys in Peoria or Chicago or somewhere nearby, or wherever in US, and they have some logistical arrangement to ship it through flight, ship it through helicopter, or ship it through on a bike or whatever it may be. Okay, so these 3 independent database which are supporting your web app I'm a single person, I'm using single browser, but internally the communication is getting channeled via 3 independent system called account service system, inventory service system, and shipping service. Okay, so these services make my purchase enabled. Make my purchase actual happens whenever I do it through mobile or through web browser. Have you understood the different communication channels, different request channels in this? Any confusion at this moment?
No.
But you started understanding like how it works?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Great. This is what it calls about domain knowledge. When somebody ask you if you have domain knowledge of shopping cart, you can just think about this picture. Right? And you can tell them all these are buzzwords. I'm sharing with you. I know it's going to confuse you right now, but these buzzwords make, if you can throw these buzzwords at interviewer, he'll understand, the e-commerce store web front, how e-commerce website works. You can clearly, think about an e-commerce solutions, enhancement, and maintenance issues. So this is how the overall, BA thought process work. BA thought process understood, understanding is via these buzzwords. Okay, so this is a bit technical, but try to think it in a layman's term. Try to relate these technical words. Where does it fit in your overall high level diagrams portfolio? Okay, just think it through. It's just for kind of thought thinking or thought initiation process. Okay. Let's try to understand another technicality. Now, have you heard of something called Spring Network? Anybody of you?
No, not me.
No. No.
Nobody? Okay, no problem. This is the most widely used framework used for web-based interface via Java. Okay. Now, this is a pretty technical, I can understand that. And this is specifically related to an implementation and technology. Okay, but this is quite famous. Means if you ask anybody, working on Java, he or she must know this. This is kind of Bible for them. So how this Spring framework works, I'll not go into depth, but I'm just trying to make you understand how this framework is a kind of, what you can say, defined template which you use for a web application, defined template which you use for a similar application has to be enacted with the least development time. Okay, again, this is technical. You will learn whenever you join a web company or whenever you join an IT company who develops web pages. Infosys is a web company. They have these utilized throughout. So whenever you join Infosys, in the development team as a BA, they will basically explain you each and every of these box, and they might take 3 hours for each of these dabbas. So please don't worry. Just try to keep an open mind and try to understand. Now we talked about layer, right? So there's a presentation layer which called as a UI layer as well. There's a service layer which called as a business layer as well, and there's a data access layer which is called as data access, data buffer, and other similar names. And there's RDBMS is basically relational data business management services. So RDBMS is a database. Okay, so how does it work? So we have other remote interface which are Android, mobile, BlackBerry, Windows Phone, and there is a web interface. Web interface is basically via desktop. Okay, and domain objects, basically these objects throw their request through a domain server. Domain server is a web server. So if you go to something like www.bankofamerica.com, that's a domain purchased by Bank of America and it's labeled so. So if you go to a bank, the normal web server relates to the company name. Somehow, Amazon.com. Amazon is a company who owns Amazon.com. And there are lots of lawsuits also whenever you purchased Amazon.com and Amazon wants its server back. Gone into really great legal battles, and then whoever has the company basically won the battle because that logo, that brand relates to them. So you can't have Amazon.server purchase for you. Okay, this is kind of copyright things which we should understand whenever you talk about domain names, when you talk about web related developments. Okay, and then we have service interface. As we talked about, these are business interface which normally just pass the message after checking out the credentials, after checking out the locational informations, and so on and so forth. Okay, so all these layers have their own type of importance, and this is how it depicts as in framework. Okay, I know it's confusing, don't worry, I've just put it because uh, we normally explain these things to development in quite depth, but whenever somebody asks you about framework, you can throw them these words. So there are some interfaces, there are some service interfaces, there are some domain object connectors, and so on and so forth. And in a framework there are normally presentation layer, service layer, and data access layer. Okay, so this is just to understand or make you think as an IT business analyst. Okay, we are just trying to go in depth in terms of a BA's day-to-day life. Any confusion? Anybody want to ask any question as of now? Okay, I'll move it. I know it's a bit confusing. Just bear with me, and we'll learn manual. Now there are some buzzword called microservices. You might have heard. Microservices are basically small single way communication with web server or mobile server. So REST API is a microservice. Okay, my login process can be a microservice. So these are simple communication with one device to another, built on something called service oriented architecture. So I ask you, you reply. You ask me, I reply. This is what you call service oriented. So you ask for a service and the server or the other party services you. These are service oriented architecture. These are famous architectures which are implemented and evolved over the past few years. So what does SOA stand for? Microservice architecture is a form of SOA, service oriented architecture, whereby software applications are built as a collection of loosely coupled services. So I can create, I can add, I can remove these services whenever I feel, as in changes in the architecture, to one as a monolithic software. Monolithic software application is basically closely bundled tight, which can't be removed, which can be changed. So nowadays, as we worked on Agile, we have something called loosely coupled architectures, loosely coupled services. So I can change, I can add, I can subtract the services wherever I want. If I want to stop the application, but not the web server, I'll just remove the login service. So nobody can log in, so nobody can purchase, but you can view the site. You can view the stock. If it's allowed for means anonymous user or the users who is not logged in. Okay, you can view the stock on Amazon, even if you're not logged in. Try doing that thing. So there are certain services which are sequential in nature. So unless you have one, you can't go to other. So these are how the microservice architecture executes. So there's a sequential executions, and then there are parallel services offerings. Okay, let's try to understand it in a layman's term. Let's not go in depth. We are not going to design or develop any software. Just we need to understand the architecture. So whenever you try to explain your analysis done at State Farm, it's really good to have this knowledge, and you will get this knowledge when you start working for a particular domain. So these are called domain knowledge. We learn on job. We learn whenever we start working. This is not complicated. It looks complicated because these are new words to you. Okay, and microservices is normally used very commonly nowadays. So it's better to know the most platform which are using microservices are basically cloud, mobile, Internet of Things, and even wearable devices. So if you have a smartwatch, it uses microservices internally. Okay, does that make sense? Guys, please keep asking questions. I feel really, I'm talking, and no questions are there. Anybody have any questions?
We have to understand.
Yeah, it looks like today's session is little bit confusing, kind.
Exactly.
Okay. It's not confusing. It's basically now we are learning and we are going into the shoes of BA, right? So there are certain technical terms which BA talks day in, day out. So if you are going to join any BA term, you'll of course learn. No problem in that. But kind of these things, if you start having a knowledge, kind of even grassroots, it will going to help you. So that's how I have put it these things. So don't take it as an what I can say, a must learn kind of thing, but this is like good to learn kind of scenario. Okay, and whenever you start thinking about the HLDs now, you will basically think it through. So you can do a Google on, let's say, microservices and try to understand some things. If you have a time and basically wants to understand certain things, so those kind of scenarios. So please don't get confused these things. Okay, then there's another. This is called Amazon microservices architecture. Now, whenever I use Amazon Web Services, Amazon has some cloud servers, if you heard of them. Amazon is a shopping portal. That's a different thing. They also sell cloud servers. Cloud servers are basically computers who are online 24/7. So whenever I develop an application, I can deploy, I can post it on Amazon cloud, and everybody can start using it. This is like Google Drive. Google Drive, I can share the photo, I can share the link with everybody. So I don't have to share the 20 MB movie file on mobile to eat up my network. I just upload it once my Google Drive and send the link to whoever relatives I want to have have them look at those videos, right? I do that. Do you use Google Drive, any other drive, or any other online storage for that matter? Anybody used?
Yeah, I use
Okay,
Drive.
so you know how it works, right? So Amazon web servers or cloud servers are something very common, and as we can see, these layers are vertically depicted. So you have content delivery layer, API, advanced programming interface layer, then we have application layer and persistency layer. Persistency, don't bother. Persistence basically how to basically track the history, how to keep the state of your login, or you as an user in track, right? So if you purchased a Sony TV, or if you purchased a Panasonic TV which don't have so much good sound interface, then so Amazon can come back to you and sell some sound bars which will go really well with that Panasonic TV. Like whatever last time you purchased, the Amazon suggests you the next level of purchase, right? Have you gone through that? Have you ever observed something like that? Anybody for you? You do purchase on Amazon, right? You do purchase on Flipkart and all those shopping portals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you observed, like if you purchase one thing and Amazon is suggesting other?
Yeah, they give recommendations, whichever thing
Exactly.
we search in Google. It
Perfect.
pops up as a recommendation on Facebook and Amazon.
Great. This comes to the persistency layer, development blocks. So this is how the systems are evolving. So whenever somebody asks, how does this computer recommends you? So this persistency layer logic supports the application layer to suggest some additional item to the user. This is how it works. Okay. Just to basically, understand smaller things. And I'll move ahead. I know this is basically difficult. Now this is very simple basically. How as an BA relates to development as well as QA, quality assurance or quality control or testing team, right? So there's something called software code, right? We create the software products, software services via software code. Programming, right? These guys do programming. These guys do coding. These guys do unit testing. So you check whatever you develop, whatever you create, which is along the lines of whatever design have been built, which is called low level design, which is a part of functional specification, right? And the component you dissolve, the smaller blocks you develop is related to a low entity in lower level design. And whenever we go to one level higher, see, software code is line by line. Unit testing has been done on a program basis. Lower level design has done on a component basis. And then the BA starts on HLD. HLD is high level diagrams. In the high level diagram, I have to check iris scanners. If they are working with the system, I have to check if they have something called SAP connectors, because was there in my diagram as an HLD. Is it working? If the testing team say yes, it was working, then I'll just say tick. So what I'll do on a HLD, I'll analyze each and every block if it's working fine together, right? If the block working fine independently, I'm talking about independence as in SAP connector working with the attendance system, iris scanner working with the attendance system. Now system, does the attendance coming on? Can I watch, check the attendance from India? Can I check my attendance from Bloomington, St. Louis? or New Jersey, can I? Then the system is working fine. So these are level of testings. We'll see these different type of testings in depth whenever we do QA/QC. But just to understand as of now, this is how the testing gets one level up, one level up, one level up. This is like grouping of testings. This is how the testing progress done. And the business system requirement specification actually relate to something like acceptance testing. So whenever the business user, the Keshav we talked about from State Farms, does testing of your developed system and tells you, hey BA, I've checked it, it's working. It means he have accepted the system work and he's think it's working okay for him. So that's a kind of approval which we get from the client. You're not responsible for that, but you should understand what you mean by acceptance testing, what you mean by system testing. And we're going to learn each of these entities in QA/QC, and that's why we have QA/QC in your training capsule, because you need to understand the high level design, you need to understand all the above three layers, all the above three testing partigrams. BA is actively involved as an advisory capacity or in authoritative capacity. So this way BA has a really great say in terms of approving the software deployment, approving the system testing, approving the acceptance testing. Could you relate now why I was telling you about these architecture and HLD diagrams?
Yeah.
Great. So this is what we're going to learn as in BA. The upper three layers on our shoulders. The lower three layers is on PM shoulders. Lower three levels are all the problems. Upper three layers is all the appreciation. Believe me, you'll understand this in depth. Okay? So just be happy. Happy Diwali. I know these are basically critical new learnings. So there is always a kind of, अरे यार ये क्या बकबक चल रही है, ये होता है, and I can clearly relate, because whenever somebody told me in my good old days, I might have said so and I might have thought so. So please don't worry on that part. Okay? You will have a look at this recording, or I'll request Devji to release this thing, as early as possible, so you can,
So we can go through this video 2-3 times, so
exactly.
we will get an
I can understand that, and I can understand the particular challenges, because we are now, getting into the last stages of BA as in capsule. So it's really, this is a kind of the most difficult thing you'll understand, and there's something called SQL. SQL is a part of BA because, quite a few companies even today, they might ask you SQL questions in interview. This is a kind of old chipped block which is has attached to all homes. So don't worry on the complexity part of it. I'll make you prepared. I'll make you walk and talk the BA technicalities. So please don't bother. Just take it as it comes to you and try to spend spend some time on homeworks which we talked about, right? So today, try to make an HLD of attendance system, which whatever you thought of. Okay, I don't want it to look like, whatever I've depicted here. I'll come again. These are my dabbas, my box. You can just use pen, paper and try to do an HLD of attendance system. Okay, attendance system enhancement, right? Could you do that for me, please?
Yeah, so we can.
Can you give us a sample or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share
so
this
we
diagram.
can.
If you want, I'll share this diagram right away. Means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And just try to, I'll share this on, WhatsApp. So you can have a look at them, right? And I'll request Devji if they can, forward these recordings or, get it approved as early as possible. I'll put a personal request to him. Please don't worry on that part. Okay? So you can really think it through how it works. Now again, we'll try to compare HLD and LLD. HLD, it's not a responsibility, but it's good to have by BA. LLD is a responsibility of solution architect, technical architect, and PM. Okay. Now the connection is really important, because if you don't have HLD, the LLD might be haywire. Why I'm saying so? Because LLD is a need of functional specification. Even HLD is a need of functional specification document. It's not a need of SRS, but it's good to have in SRS, because they think BA is not technical person and it has to be so. So please don't pressurize yourself, but as a person, as a friend, as a mentor, I would like you to have HLD in every of your SRS, so that you as in persons have a control of whatever you are creating, whatever you are nurturing as in solution, as in vision of a solution, as an evolution of a solution. Okay, so it's important as a person to me, because whenever I'm architecting a solution, where I'm thinking of a solution, to have a logical dabbas, a conceptual diagram is really helps me a lot, rather than reading 20-page document every time. Whenever somebody asks me a question कि boss ये SAP connector अपन ने कब चालू किया था, and believe me, these questions come to you from very senior person like CIO, CTO, and calls to BA saying, hey BA, ये अपन ने SAP connector का कब आइडिया रियली कंसीव किया था, बिकॉज अभी SAP का नया वर्जन बोलता है कि वो प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करेगा डेवलपमेंट का. See, how does it happen? You are the connector between client and your company for a solution, for a business solutions providing start, right? So whatever additions or subtraction the engagement takes into account or get approved has to be traced as well, right? At some point of time, and all these items must have a revenue impact, must have the profitability impact somewhere down the line, है ना. मैंने एक कुकर खरीदा, कुकर के अंदर के अगर बर्तन नहीं आए तो कुकर का रियली यूज बहुत कम हो जाता है, राइट. Cooker, normally you put cooker with all those 3 or at least 2 different compartments, right? The cooker, rice cooker, right? So if you have just one compartment, it's यार ये एक डब्बे का कुकर का क्या करूंगा मैं, मींस हर दिन सिर्फ मैं चावल बनाऊं, फिर दाल के लिए फिर से एक बार उसको लगाना पड़ेगा. This wastage of time and wastage of efforts, right? So to save such things, I as in BA should understand the holistic picture of solution. So I have to have some reference to a diagram rather than a document, so that ये diagram का print out मैं कहीं भी रख दूंगा मेरे टेबल पे. So if somebody CIO calls, I can directly refer to the diagram से कि हाँ अपने ऐड किया था ये, बाद में ये मेरे ख्याल से कुछ नवंबर महीने में अपन ने चालू किया था. If you want, I can get exact date to you. He said, if he's required, he'll say yes or no. And believe me, as in BA, you normally talk to all higher level people. Higher level means top bosses. So whatever they ask you is in the good faith or good health of us to support them with full details or with full heart, so that they'll appreciate you so many times. And then you get your promotion, you get your leaves and all those things also as and when you like. So these connections, I am going to make sure whatever calls comes to you as an BA, you have to answer them with all the details is required and it's sufficiently available to you. Okay, so that's why I'm saying as an BA, it's really great to have high level diagrams. Whenever you think of a system, start thinking as if today as well, right? Try to draw some high level diagram of this attendance enhancement management system. You can label it the way you want. You can draw the diagrams the way you want. Only you should be able to, explain what are these dabbas, how they relate to the actual scenario. And it's for you. And based on that, whenever you present this HLD, if you present this HLD, that's going to get converted to LLD. LLD is micro level design. HLD is macro level design. Macro is mota, micro is chota, granular details. Okay, overall the architecture of the application and the network design means there's a mobiles attachment, there is a web server attachment, there's a cloud server provisions, and so on and so forth. So you have to have the gamut where your application is working. So there's a SAP, there's something called cloud server purchased by State Farm from Amazon, or purchased by State Farm from Google Cloud Service. There are a dime of dozens cloud service provider. Okay, how does this differ? Because every cloud server service provider have their goodies, have their good points, have their avoid points. So all these came into effect whenever you think it through as a solution. All this came into play whenever you think it as a high level diagram, and you have those depiction, you have those symbolization represented in HLD. Okay. And of course, the target clients, their designers, their reviewers, their management team, they would appreciate if you do the HLD and if you explain it to them, this is how I look at the scenario, I look at the solution in terms of these are blocks, these are conceptual ideas, right? So even they can suggest if you miss anything, they can approve it really quickly, because believe me, image approval really gets through within minutes. Document approvals normally takes days or weeks, if not weeks. So approval process, if you get HLD approval, supporting documents get approved really easily. And this is how, as an BA, it's important for you to understand, right? Because approval of SRS is BA's responsibility, right? Approval of getting green from a client on a particular solution so that it can go to the accounts or revenue team of Infosys for all those project initiation, project kickoff, and all those ceremonies we talked about. We will talk about in Agile, Agile training capsule of us, which are the ceremony which gets triggered by approval of a simple diagram called HLD diagram, or a simple document called SRS document. Okay, we'll have a look at those things in depth. So we are talking about all these guys, and whenever you talk about LLD, the team is designers team, operations team, implementers within Infosys. LLD is for Infosys, HLD is for State Farm as well as Infosys. Could you relate this? Could you understand this? Any confusion? Our class is quite silent today. Is it due to Diwali?
No, it's due to
No, not
confusion.
due to this today's session.
Okay, don't worry. We can basically have a look at it again tomorrow in the next session also. Please don't worry. But could you relate to certain things right here? We are just explaining on based of the older example only.
Yes.
Okay, great. Chalo, let's move on. A next step to that. So the goal of HLD is convert the business requirement to high level solution. Could you think through this? Could you relate this? We talked about this earlier as well, right? The pink one are HLD and the purple one are LLD. So HLD is part of SRS, chronologically created first before any other tech documentation. So this is a kind of start of architecture of a vision or a system, mostly done by BA. Creator, solution architect, they mention as a solution architect, but normally a BA in an actual scenario. But yes, a solution architect can help you as an SME or as an COE support. Yes, this can also happen. So you can just tell the PM ki boss, I'm going to work on HLD. Could you have somebody, some domain expert support me, or could you have some solution architect support me? You can do that, and they'll come to your desk, or you can go to their desk and have this thing done. Okay, so this thing happens. So that's why I'm saying not a must, good to have. So whenever that guy talked about different layer architecture tires, you will understand, and that's why I put this slide inside our training capsule. Okay, so don't sweat. And this is a part of software requirement specification, SRS. Okay, about LLD, it's a part of overall FRS functional specification owned by PM and the team. So don't worry on the purple part of it. As far as SRS goes, SRS actually has certain DB design, functional design in mota conceptual level, and overall review record as well. We talked about this traceability, right? So this talks about the overall traceability of it. And overall, we don't create program specifications. These are done at a later stage in FRS, in functional specifications. So those guys create all those things. So the pink is BS and the purple is PM's responsibility. Any confusion at this moment? Any questions for me?
No, not now.
Okay, great. No problem. Let's go ahead. Now, another technical things which we need to understand is ER diagram. Entity relationship diagram. This is a kind of HLD only. Entity relationship, all those conceptual box can be called as entities, and how these relates to each and each others are basically entity relationship diagrams. But when you go to something like database, right? We talked about we have seen Excel, right? There are rows, there are column, and there are cell, right? So we have columns saying customer name, we have columns order numbers, we have saying column product descriptions, and so on and so forth. So these are data entities, and for a particular product or particular customer, I might go to the row level. saying ki row number 24 is for Ravindra Pandey. So whatever Ravindra Pandey have been ordered, whatever the product description attached to Ravindra Pandey's order can be referred to row number 24, something like that sort. So these are called entities and the objects, right? The row is basically the actual personal data. The columns are normally generic commercial labels. Could you understand this? Could you relate this? Whenever we did this Excel charts, right? We understood this, right? The cell is actually
Yes.
single entity. Row is a set of multiple entity. Even column is a set of multiple entities. Certain symbols signify maximum, minimum relationship. So there could be one to many. Ravindra Pandey can order multiple, products or have multiple orders for a single product, right? Could you understand this?
Yeah.
There is a
You could have, purchased 2 Punjabi dress. You could have purchased 5 saris in one order, or you could have 5 different orders to purchase 5 saris. You could relate, right?
Yes.
So these are relationship, one to many, one to one, and so on and so forth. So these are entity and their relationship. Now, whenever in HLD, you try to understand if State Farm is going to have multiple cloud service provider, because Google works fine in India, Amazon works fine in European countries. So they might go for 2 cloud service providers. So this is one to many. Me, I can purchase 6 t-shirts in 2 orders. So there are 4 t-shirts in one order, 2 t-shirts in other order. These are one to many entity relationship. Whenever you talk to a development team or a CIO who was a database administrator, or whenever you talk to database administrator to understand how the database is functioning, he might say there are one to many. So what is one to many? These are relationship depictions. Okay. Now there are something called ER diagram. We talked about ER diagram is the tool used by good old BAs to depict these data relationships. Nowadays we just use UML. Nowadays we just use use case and their executions. But you should know the ER diagram, mota. Okay. So we'll watch a video now, just to understand how this ER diagram works or how this ER diagram functions. Okay, give me a minute. I'll start this thing. I'll do. Okay, I'll go to videos. I'll go to ER diagram part 1. Oh no, not part 2. Part 1.
Hi, my name's Taylor and I'm from Lucidchart. Today,
Again, this is also from Lucidchart. So we'll try to understand similar tools. So it'll be easier for you as well. Where's this? Okay. Could you see this chap?
you'll be learning all about entity
Could you hear this?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
relationship diagrams, or ERDs. We're going to start off by discussing a high-level overview, and then together we'll dive in and build an example together, complete with entities, attributes.
We've seen, like in customer, there should be a name, last name, address. In order, there should be order number, customer name, who purchased, when purchased, and so on and so forth. And there's a product. How many Punjabi dress, how many t-shirts, quantity, and the type. Means there could be a neck t-shirts or collared t-shirts, right? And so on and so forth. So there's a Punjabi dress, or there's just the top, and these different products. So normally these are 3 different columns I'm talking about, right? And there are various rows attached to it. So I'm talking about various entities, group of entities. Could you understand these entities, group of entities?
Yes.
A cell is an entity. A column is are basically set of specific entities. Let's say customer. So there are various rows in customer column. There are various rows in order column. There are various rows in product column. Could you relate this to our Excel sheet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we are talking about the relationship in between them. Okay. So whenever you normally work with very senior BAs, very old BAs, they talked in these symbolic languages, or they talked in these words. So we need to understand on a superficial scale at this. they might not expect you to do, or they might expect you to know these. So that's why I'm included in our session. I know this is again a bit technical. Today is our technical day, so I can understand that this is a bit challenging for you, but still just try to do it. We can do it, we can revise as well. So please don't worry. Let's listen to this.
Relationships, and cardinality. By the end of this video, you'll be able to build.
And just ignore all those difficult words, but try to relate. If you have ever heard these words, these are all technical symbolic gestures, symbolic words which these techie guys use. So now you're basically trying to go into IT domain. You're trying to understand the IT gamut, IT people, how they talk normally. They use these all heavy words. That doesn't mean any great things, but these are specific terminology used by IT guys, information technology guys, right? So whenever you're going to part of this fraternity, it's good to know these things. So if you're trying to be a doctor, you should know all those big words, right? With all those silent letters. If you're going to be a lawyer, you have to use those all legal terminologies, something like that. So as an IT professional, you should understand at least some part of this. So we are basically trying to grow ourselves into IT profession. Business analysis is normally an IT profession. We support IT team, we support business team, right? So this is now we are leaning towards the Infosys side of the world. Okay, so just bear with me. Just try to understand
an entire entity relationship diagram from scratch. Have you ever wondered why you get an error message telling you that your ideal Twitter handle is already taken? Or how Amazon can keep track of so many different orders and customers and products? The answers to these questions lies within the creation of a database, which, in other words, is a collection of information that is organized so data can be easily stored, managed, updated, and retrieved. Now, there's a lot of moving information in a database, and understanding how the many elements of a database interact with each other can be difficult to grasp. Engineers need a visual way to understand how all these separate elements are related to each other and how they're working together. To show this, they build entity relationship diagrams. So let's talk about how you're going to make these ER diagrams. You can draw them out with pen and paper, but it's going to be way easier for you to use a diagramming tool. Today, I'm going to use an easy-to-use tool called Lucidchart, and you can too, for free actually. By clicking on the top right corner here, you can access Lucidchart's website, enter your email address, and have a free account in just a few seconds. That way, you can follow along with me and continue building your own ER diagrams as well. Before we can create an actual ERD, we need to better understand the individual components of the entity relationship diagram. And this is going to start with entities, which are an object, such as a person, place, or thing, to be tracked in the database. For example, in the case of buying something on Amazon, let's say a Snuggie, an entity could be a customer, an order, and lastly, we can't forget our Snuggies, the product. Now, each one of these entities is going to have what we call attributes, which are various properties or traits. In this case, under the customer entity, we have a customer ID, first name, last name, street, city, zip, and phone. It's important to remember that the entities in your database will be the rows, and that the attributes in your database will be depicted as the columns. Now, we have the different entities and the different attributes on the screen here, but now let's talk about the relationships that exist between these different entities. The relationships describe how these entities will interact with each other, if at all. And you do that by drawing a line in between them. So when I draw a line in between these particular elements, I'm showing that there is some sort of interaction or connection in some way. Now that we have our relationships in place, you'll see some funky notation attached to these lines. This, in fact, is called the cardinality, which further defines the relationship.
Cardinality is basically a relationship, as simple as that. But they want to use this word because, good old British used to use this word. Shakespeare, this is a Shakespearean word, if you could relate to it.
In a numerical context, particularly within minimums and maximums. So for example, here on this right side, you can see some different types of cardinality we have in ER diagrams. We have one, many, one and only one, zero or one or many, zero or many.
We use that include, exclude, right? In use case, these are similar, only a bit of different type of scenario. So, don't bother on exact symbol or exact, where the notification have been used, just try to understand what it does, mota, how you can use it in your HLD. So just, try to understand it at a superficial level. We will go into depth, in the very latter stage of our classes.
Okay.
Don't be afraid if this isn't making sense quite yet. We're going to walk through some examples that'll help you understand this perfectly. So let's talk about the relationship and the cardinality that exists between a customer and the order. Now, the best way to do this is to think about it logically. We have to think about what is the minimum number of orders that a customer could have, and what's the maximum number of orders that a customer could have. So let's start with minimum. What is the minimum number of orders that a customer can have? Well, a customer could exist, but he or she could have 0 orders. So to show that over here, we'll have that 0 sign. Now we have to think about the maximum. What are the maximum number of orders that a customer can have? Well, as you probably already know, a customer can have infinite orders. In the case of Snuggies, you can never just have one Snuggie. So to show that, we'll use this 0 or many crow's foot notation. Now let's talk about the minimum and maximum relationship between orders and customers. So we ask ourselves the same question. What is the minimum amount of customers that an order may have? And what's the maximum number of customers that an order may have? Now, a specific order can only have one and only one customer. Well, you can imagine the confusion that could come if the same specific order had lots of customers. So in this case, there can be only one and only one number of customers to an order. And we can show that using this sign here. So now let's talk about the relationship or cardinality between orders and products. So we'll ask ourselves the same question. A certain order can have how many products? Well, for an order to exist, it has to have one product. But a lot of different products can be comprised of that order. So to show that on our diagram, we'll change this notation. Now we ask ourselves that question in reverse. A product can be a part of how many orders? Well, a product could be a part of no orders, but it also could be a product of many orders. So we're going to use this 0 or many notation on our diagram. So now you've built your entire ER diagram. And you built something small here, but now you have the foundation and framework that you need to build complex, complete entity relationship diagrams. Although this can seem a little bit overwhelming at first, just be sure to walk yourself through that logic. And you'll...
This is actual database design. So please don't bother. But sometimes in some companies, they might require BA to do it, but in latter years. So whenever you join as a BA, they will not give you to design database. But, to understand database entities is kind of, I'll say, need for a BA, because then you know how is happening at the back, back of the, in the back of the system, or how the database is going to get interacted with the front. So how we efficiently we can add or remove and those things. So, these are again good to have, not necessary to have. And if the company have these processes, they will train you on those. Okay.
Be able to build entire complex ERDs. You'll also see on this diagram that there are some unfamiliar objects such as PK and FK, which refer to primary keys and foreign keys, something that we're going to be covering in a video coming soon, so stay tuned. Additionally, you need to actually have this diagram to be database ready. You can use the import and export features of Lucidchart to have all of that done automatically for you. Using the export feature, you'll have that code automatically.
These are actual SQL commands. What we talk about SQL programming, whatever bit we need to learn, this is like create table creates a table. Table is like Excel sheet where you have so many rows, so many columns. Okay. Primary key is a common column in your table with the other table, so that you can relate or you can reference to the entities by those columns. So if I have a table called Ravindra Pandey address, and if I have a table called Ravindra Pandey purchase likes, right? So to Amazon, this purchase table really relates Ravindra Pandey to where I need to send this, purchased item, right? So there's a table of different addresses of Ravindra Pandey. So whenever he purchases, Amazon come back to you and ask, hey Ravindra, where do you want me to post this, or when you want to send me by courier, right? So for that you have two different tables. So these two different tables are related to each other with something called primary key or some key. Let's not call primary or secondary. So this key refer to this element. So whatever belongs to Ravindra Pandey, that's a customer name, in my address column and the product purchase column has to be related by a key. So key is another cell which is common for different tables, different Excel sheets, right? And this is how you create these primary keys, secondary keys, and different kind of key.
Automatically generated for you and exported to the database management system you're using.
These are different type of companies who provide database, right? This is like MySQL is the most, it's a most economical open system servers, database servers available as of now and used by almost large number of web developers. Then there's a PostgreSQL. This is used by robotics, AI, machine learning, Internet of Things, those kind of fraternity, specifically highly technical engineering firms. SQL Server, this is very good old server created by Microsoft, has been in use for over 60 years, and many old legacy systems are on SQL or Oracle. Oracle is also another company, and they have really great implementations. Okay, so SAP uses Oracle as a background database server. SAP is a company, Oracle is different company. Oracle database is the schema of rows and columns efficiently compressed used by SAP internally to refer to this table, right? So whenever you put something on Amazon, when you save something on Amazon, it goes into Oracle table, which is installed on software, on Amazon servers in Amazon's office. Like Windows, Microsoft Windows installed on your laptop. Could you understand this? Could you refer the scenario or the solution deployed at a particular server or a infrastructure or a global cloud? Could you relate? Are we there?
Yeah, but no, not me.
I know it's a bit technical. So see, this is like kind of peak of BA class, peak of technicality of BA class, and we're going to have a look at these commands like these. Only to you to understand is okay. Create table does create a table in something called database. Then we'll see what is table. We have seen Excel sheet, right? Rows and column. Table is of rows and columns, right? But in table, you normally add one row at one time or multiple rows at one time, and they are referred by some key or some identification mark. That's it. That's what the things to remember right now. Okay.
Okay.
I know it's really happy Diwali for us.
Yeah, actually.
I know. It's too much trick. Let's bear me for a few minutes, and we might wrap up earlier. And I'll share these things with you so that you can start thinking on something like HLD. And then when you start relating to that HLD, you'll try to start understanding the elements which we think through. And believe me, you're going to learn this. You might like to learn this whenever you actually come across such, designing methodology or, start implementing your ideas on paper so that everybody else in the world should understand it. So this is a kind of standardization which is used by BA. So that's why it's a kind of, best to learn. And, you'll learn it over the time. Don't worry. This is kind of introduction. So that's why you might feel heavy to start with. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
just bear with me.
Thanks for watching this tutorial on ER diagrams.
Okay,
Subscribe to our channel below to get access to more helpful videos and tutorials. Leave a comment as well if you...
I'll start the second one. There are two of these.
Hi, my name's Taylor, and I'm going to walk you through some advanced ERD concepts. Today,
You can see the same guy with different shirt, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
we're going to be going over primary keys, foreign keys, bridge tables, and then really understanding how
Bridge is basically buffer. Okay, we'll come to that.
diagrams help you see exactly what's going on in your database. So let's start where we left off with primary. Hi, my name is and product and the correct cardinality between. You'll notice that next to each attribute is the word key. This column is here so we can distinguish certain attributes as either primary keys or foreign keys. Let's start with primary keys. This is probably easiest to understand if we step out of the diagram and into the table it represents. Remember, each entity in your diagram represents a table within your database. So let's look at the customer entity as a table with rows.
We can understand customer sheet in Excel, order sheet in Excel, product sheet in Excel, like we did in our chart, right? So these are big data numbers. These are big data key, because when you see Amazon, normally there are 22 million users per day at peak at Amazon purchasing. So could you imagine maintaining these 22 million users data? How do you do it? You can't do it in Excel. Excel has a limit of 250 sheets per Excel. So you need to have some better mechanism, right? Efficient mechanism. So database is the mechanism where we normally have these tables rather than sheets. Just a different label. From a BS standpoint of view, let's not worry how the database stored and how we crunch the data faster for DB than Excel and all those things. Just imagine a quicker way, much efficient way than Excel. And you can imagine just like Excel sheet. A table is an Excel sheet, as simple as that. So there is a combination of rows and columns. Each cell represent an entity. Okay, let me play this thing.
And columns. We've got all these different instances of the customer here. And if you're Amazon or something, you've got millions of.
We've seen this thing, right? Similar Excel. We have built pie charts on this, right? So this is just the bigger sheet, bigger data, and then bigger charts, so on and so forth.
Customers all within this table. Wouldn't it be nice if you could use a single trigger to quickly and accurately distinguish who's who in this massive list? That's where a primary key comes in. A primary key is an attribute or field that uniquely identifies every record in a certain table. And since a single attribute can accomplish all that, it makes sense that you'll just need one primary key per entity. So for this customer table, the primary key is going to be a value that makes it so that this customer is unlike any other customer in our table. For one of these attributes to qualify, there are a few rules. First, a primary key has to be unique, so that it identifies only one record in your table. Second, it needs to be never changing. It'd be pretty difficult to keep an accurate record of your customers if you're using an attribute that might not stay consistent. And finally, a primary key needs to be never null. That just means there wouldn't be an occasion where the value could be left blank. So let's look at a specific customer, like John here, and determine what data might uniquely identify him. Well, you can't rely on names because two totally different customers could very easily share the same first and last name. There's a John Smith here and a John Smith here, but they're two completely different customers. So it's not a unique record in this table. You can't even rely on an address because you could have two separate customers living at the same place. Or a customer could move and then their address changes. So an address isn't unique and breaks the rule of never changing. Same thing for a phone number. So that leaves us with customer ID. By design, any sort of ID is typically programmed to increment for each addition to the table. This customer signs up and is assigned customer ID 30016. Then this customer signs up and is assigned 30017, and so on. You can see how customer ID passes all our rules. John's customer ID will completely identify him as a particular instance in our database, and that value won't ever be repeated in this table. So we're going to make that our primary. Here's something interesting to think about while we're on this topic. Have you ever tried to create a username for an account and then later wanted to change your username to something else because it was hard to remember or stupid or something, but then you can't because the site won't let you? Well, that's probably because your username is being used as a primary key in that site's database, and primary keys can never change. That's how the site is linking you, the customer, to your account. They don't let you change that primary key because their system relies on it for accurate records. Or how about when you're setting up a new account and you try to create a username, but get an error message saying that it's already taken? Again, this could be happening because the username is being used as the primary key, and a primary key can't be repeated. In our example, though, we're just using a randomly assigned customer ID number as our primary key. We know this will always be unique and never repeated. So let's jump back to our diagram and note this by putting PK next to our customer ID. And I'll go ahead and quickly clear out all this other text to make things clearer. Now let's apply those same rules to find primary key for our other entities. Let's quickly jump into the order table that this order entity represents and zero in on a specific instance. Here, it looks like our customer, John, placed an order to go to this address and it shipped at this time. Looking at the data, what could be our primary key? We already know names and addresses are no good, and ship date isn't going to work either. Two orders could be shipped at the exact same time, so that's not a unique attribute. It's pretty clear that order number is the primary key. So we put PK next to that attribute in our diagram. And finally, we can look at the table that this product entity represents. Let's say our customer, John, purchased this product here, a beautiful Snuggie. You know by now, the product ID is going to be the primary key in this table. So we note that in our diagram too. Each of these primary keys is unique, never changing, and never known. So you probably noticed that I'm using a diagramming software to modify these ERDs, but just know that the same concepts apply if you're drawing them out on pen and paper. But if you want to make things easier on yourself, you can sign up for the diagramming software that I'm using, for free actually. It's called Lucidchart. All you have to do is pause the video, click on the card in the top right corner, and sign up for an account. All it takes is an email address, and you can follow along with me. So now that we have our primary keys nailed down, let's talk about foreign keys. A foreign key is the same as a primary key, but just located in a foreign place. Maybe you have a primary key in one entity, but it'd be really helpful to pull that data into another entity. That's where you get a foreign key. And we want to make note of these foreign keys so we can better understand how our entities relate to one another. Let's see how this plays out in our diagram. We've already established customer ID as the primary key for the customer entity, but that same attribute is also over here in the order entity. Why? Because for each order we record, we want to know exactly which customer placed that order. The order entity is simply referencing the customer ID from the customer entity. That makes it a foreign key here, so we'll mark it as such. And we can further show this relationship in our diagram by adjusting this relationship to line up with the primary and foreign keys. Just move these crow's feet to line up with the PK and FK attributes. It reinforces the fact that this foreign key in the order entity is referencing the primary key of the customer entity. Let's review how this foreign key works by looking at it in the order table. So here are all our orders. If we look at a specific order, it has a customer ID of 30016. This is a foreign key because it references the primary key in the customer table. Now we know exactly which customer we're dealing with when we look at this specific order. So John made this order here, but look farther down. The same customer ID is repeated because John placed another order. Unlike a primary key, foreign keys don't have to be unique. They can be repeated in the table. If John's an avid shopper, his customer ID is going to be repeated a lot. Another difference between primary and foreign keys is that there can be multiple foreign keys in one entity. Let's say for each order, we also want to know what product is being sold. We'd add product ID to our table. And this is what it would look like in our diagram. We just add another field, type in product ID, and since product ID is a primary key over here, that makes it a foreign key in this entity. Now we have two foreign keys in our order table. There's also something called a composite primary key. Composite primary keys are used when two or more attributes are necessary to uniquely identify every record in a table. So let's say we created a shipment entity, and it's got these attributes here. And then let's take a look at what the corresponding table might look like in order to explain this better. Let's say John ordered a regular Snuggie and then a zebra pattern Snuggie. It's all one order, but they're getting sent in two different shipments. When we look at these two rows and each of these attributes, we wouldn't be able to rely on any single one to give us a unique record. The product number is duplicated when someone else buys that same zebra pattern Snuggie. So it's not a unique record in this table. An order could be parsed into a couple different shipments, like John's was. So order number is also not unique. Charge card time would be duplicated if someone else pays for their shipment at the exact same time. And same for packing time and ship date. All not unique. So it doesn't look like any of these attributes will give us the primary key we're looking for. But what if we took two of these attributes and combined them to create a new unique value, like product ID and order number? Take those two values for any instance, combine them together, and you've got a value that won't be repeated. That's a composite primary key. Now the primary key for this shipment is different than the primary key for this shipment. You could technically call this a compound key because we're using two foreign keys, but usually people just say composite key as an umbrella term. Anyway, jumping back over to our diagram, you note a composite primary key with multiple PK marks. That doesn't mean there are two primary keys. It means that both of these attributes are needed to create a composite primary key. A couple rules here when making these. 1, use the fewest number of attributes as possible. 2, don't use attributes that are apt to change because that can make things messy. And you might ask yourself, why not just create a shipping ID attribute so we don't have to deal with this scenario? Well, you certainly could, and that's totally valid. It's actually quite a debate among some people if you should even bother with composite primary keys. But it also
we don't use composite key nowadays because it's really slows down the whole stuff. So there are certain performance parameter where we normally create a typically different table altogether. So nowadays it's better to have many tables than have composite keys. So the calculation cycles are quite faster that way. Okay, if you want I can go into the depth, but I believe this is okay. So life is easier nowadays because we don't have composite key, we just have foreign and primary key to relate to a particular record, to relate to a particular sheet as an independent entity, independent individual entity. Like me, Ravindra Pandey staying in Mumbai is independent from Ravindra Pandey staying in Kanpur. There's a Ravindra Pandey civil surgeon in Kanpur. You can search on the Google basically. So this way you can relate to a personal individual entity, right? For product order. So who ordered what and what are the products you order? Because there are different products, there are different orders. I could order again. I might order I might want a cake to be delivered on birthday, anniversary, and on my kid's birthday, right? Same cake because I like, for a Black Forest cake. So those scenario, these are same product IDs, different orders, different shipment. So I'm trying to relate, I'm trying to get the whole computer system work for me in this ER, right? So these are entity relationship. And whenever I try to design or define, or whenever I try to create a new system, I need to understand this relationship. Okay, if you understand this relationship in depth, the creating the HLD is just a matter of a few minutes. You can click and get it created. So those kind of scenario. Again, ER diagram is one of the most oldest tool which a BA normally use, and so it has all these IT technological mumbo jumbos. So just bear with me, try to understand, and we might not work on this, but whenever you will start on the job, I'll explain in depth if you're working on an EIR diagram. So let's not put too much thought right now, just trying to understand. If somebody says foreign key, primary key, so we what's what, that's all it's required. Arey?
depends on the database you're creating, and if there are certain scenarios where a composite primary key makes sense. Another thing we can talk about here is something called a bridge table. When you're making your ER diagrams, it's important to ask yourself, is there anything else I should be recording into the database? Sometimes you'll have two entities connected to one another, but there's more going on between them than you're accounting for. That's when you need to use a bridge table. To illustrate this point, I'm going to strip down our diagram to just customer.
I think let's stop here, or let's go to just 3 minutes more.
Product. Now, couldn't we just create a direct relationship between these two entities? A customer can purchase 0 or many products, and a certain product can be purchased by 0 or many customers. Sure, conceptually, this works. But the way this is set up, you're not going to know when a customer purchased that product. You're not going to know if they bought all of them at once or if they returned to buy more at separate times. You're going to be in the dark on many details regarding the interaction between these two entities. And this issue often occurs when you've got a many-to-many relationship. That's where a bridge table comes in. A bridge table allows for an intermediary one-to-many relationship and gets you the information you're lacking. In this example, a bridge table would be the order entity. Let's put that back into the diagram. You can see how it breaks up the many-to-many relationship, and now each time a customer purchases a product, we're going to have a record of that interaction in our order table. So as you build or modify your ER diagram, make sure you're asking yourself if you're getting all necessary information and use bridge tables to capture that data. If you want to start getting a bit more specific with your ER diagram, you can do so by adding data types for each attribute. This can be really helpful, especially if you'll be doing some programming out of this diagram. So we use an entity shape with 3 columns, and we'll specify the type of data we want on the far right side. For customer ID, we'll return an integer. That's going to give us a number like 501422. And all these attributes here will be varchar, meaning you can use various characters and then set a character limit in parentheses, like this. So for phone number, for example, it's going to have to be 10 digits to fit the standard phone format. There are several different data types and things we won't get into, but just know
data types are basically a specification of so many space reserved in the database. Excel don't use it because Excel is loosely coupled DB, but something like Oracle, something like MS SQL, something like MySQL, they normally keep the space reserved for such and such records. So whenever these restrictions are applied, whatever is going to get entered, like in ship date, you can't have name. In the integer, you can't have name, means letters. Varchar is basically numbers as well as letters. So there are these kind of restrictions to make the database used to compress the data up to an nth level, so that whenever you try to access, it can serve the information to you very efficiently. So that's why we have these, attributes attached to each and every entity, so that the retrieval and the push process is really, really faster. Okay.
so that you can include these in your ER diagram if you want to get more technical. Now, we've added a lot of detail to this ERD, but what are we going to actually do with it? Building ERDs is a great way to conceptualize and visualize before you've actually built your database. But once you've built the whole ER diagram, you're going to need to translate it into a database management system, or DBMS. Typically, you'd have to just reference this diagram and then manually enter code to create the database. That's a lot of work. But here, Lucidchart allows you to export the diagram, and it will automatically generate the code you need for your database. You can see the table commands here with the entity it's referencing. Here are the attributes for this entity with the data parameters that we set. And it also knows our primary and foreign key. Then you just specify which database management system you're using, copy the code, and paste it in. Your database is ready to go. It's a total time saver. And if you're a student with an assignment to make a diagram in a database,
this is why we do ER diagrams. So the query gets created automatically. You don't have to type so many lines of code. So these are basically used by DB administrator or the old, architect, which used to create or which used to start the architecting of the system from the DB. Okay, so that's why ER diagrams are important and used.
Conversely, let's say you've already got a database created, but you want to visualize it. Anyone who's worked in a database management system knows that it's not exactly easy to see what's going on. But
this is how the database looks to a database administrator. Sessions means how many users logged in, active IDL, total transactions. Let's not worry about anything else. It's going too technical. So this is from an IT standpoint, how BA looks at a DB, how BA looks at the design of a database. Okay, I'll stop the share. Any question for me at this moment?
No, it's kind of tricky for me. So,
Hello, could you speak a bit louder, please?
yeah, it's kind of tricky to me. So, anyways, you're going to revise on Sunday too, right? So somehow I'll get it over there. Might be.
I couldn't hear you clearly. Pardon me.
Sorry. And now?
No. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's some kind of tricky to me. So, going to revise this today's.
Yes, that's definitely. I'm going to do revise here. I mentioned it on WhatsApp group because
sure.
I think there were 2 absentees today. So we'll revisit this, so it's better for you so that you'll understand. So please don't worry.
Some kind of, I got this entity relationship little bit and kind of and
right.
The same diagrams, some diagrams. When I go in through that, we can get a lot of thoughts about that. But
sure.
When we listen that again and when we see that, so we can clarify somehow that some doubts. Yeah.
Sure. So let's take it, let's wind up here. Means I don't want to really strain you out. There's another thing called WBS structure, but we can do it in the next thing. WBS structure is really easy, believe me. So let's do the thing. As in homework, let's try to do HLD on what we talked about, that, enhancement of HR thing, right?
HR, yeah.
You can name the way you want, use your own words, use your own logical conceptual methodology or understanding these things, so that, because this is your personality, this is what you learn, and this is what you are going to work as an BA, right? So the better you understand, the more you put effort, the more you'll be easier in your latter days. Okay, this is my dabbas. You don't have to use these dabba, you can use, only just think how do you will relate to. I'll share all these images with you just in few minutes so that you can refer to these guys. Okay, and try to get this conceptual diagram. These are called high level diagrams. Okay, any questions for me at this moment?
Yeah, might be, but anyways, you're going to that sending some
Yes,
images to
no
that, right?
problem.
Yeah,
So
same here.
we can go over. We can go
Sure.
over that.
So let's meet on Sunday evening, and let's try to be a better BA now. We are going to be BA because HLD, SRS are the things which we do on job, right? So let's try to create an HRD and let's try to understand how BA works. What are the things we can include in our diagram? Okay. Let's stop here as of today. Okay, I'll take. There's no question as of now, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell what you said for the homework? Actually, I got disconnected.
Oh, come again, please. Could you speak a bit louder?
Yeah, actually, you were saying something about like to do as a homework. My internet
No
disconnected,
problem.
so
I'll
I
tell again.
couldn't.
I'll repeat.
High level diagram.
I want you to draw a high level diagram, a conceptual diagram for this attendance system advancement, enhancement, the way you want it. Use your own imagination, use your own terminology, and try to depict the system which we need to be built for, as an employee working in Infosys for a state farm. Okay, we talked about this example numerous times, so I believe you have a good idea. So let's try to do some high level diagram how this system will look like. Could you do that?
We'll try.
Sure, definitely. And let's discuss that thing in our next session. Okay, and then we'll revise whatever we revisit whatever we learned today, so don't worry. I know it's a bit technical, it takes a while to get into these mumbo jumbos, this difficult word, but this is what you call domain expertise, right? And we need to be knowing these words as an IT employees or as in working in IT fraternity, right? So don't stress yourself, please. And happy Diwali, enjoy. Let's meet on Sunday again.
Yeah, happy Diwali.
Happy
All
Diwali
of
to you
you.
all.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy. God bless you. Okay, I'll stop the
Bye-bye.
meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have
Take
a good
care.
night.
Good night. Bye.